Vale, hola, bienvenidos todos a SEAT Code. Mi nombre es Albert Tarradas, soy Technical Director en SEAT Code, en la Business Unit de Customer Journey. Y a mi lado está Diana, ¿vale? Que es Technical Director en Data Analytics. Entonces, me han dicho que os diga que aquí a la izquierda están los lavabos, ¿vale? Y que después del evento pues habrá unas pizzas y algo de beber, ¿vale? Me gustaría haceros una pequeña introducción, ¿vale? de qué es SEAT Code, de dónde venimos. SEAT Code fue fundado en 2017, ¿vale? Como Metropolis Lab, como una empresa como un laboratorio de movilidad, ¿no? Para ver diferentes soluciones para solucionar los problemas de movilidad que pueden tener las pequeñas y las grandes ciudades. En 2019 se cambió como un centro de desarrollo de software, ¿vale? Y se crearon 5 unidades de negocio. Primero de todo, la de movilidad, ¿vale? Donde se continuaron todos estos proyectos y se creó la plataforma de Giravolta, que es la plataforma donde están todas las motos de SEAT de aquí de Barcelona. Luego también está toda la parte de Quality Engineering, ¿no? Que está proyectos como Recall, TI Synchro, ¿vale? Donde dan soluciones a departamentos de postventa o de ingeniería. Luego tenemos producción y logística, donde hacen proyectos como la Control Tower, ¿vale? Donde controla el inbound y el outbound de la fábrica de aquí de la planta de Martorell. Data Analytics, que...
Bueno, Customer Journey.
Lo mejor para el final.
A lo mejor para el final. Bueno, Data Analytics es la quinta Business Unit que apareció hace poquito, hace un año. Nosotros hacemos proyectos que están dedicados a data y cómo dar valor con los datos, sobre todo este approach de data driven. Y bueno, nosotros tocamos diferentes áreas, no solamente una área de negocio en concreto, sino que vamos desde la producción, postventa, garantías, por ejemplo. Y bueno, nosotros hacemos toda esta fase de, ok, ya que se tienen los datos, ahora cómo los utilizamos para realmente dar insights y que se puedan utilizar para que sea una empresa más data driven. Y es así como nos apoyamos, más como el lado de inteligencia artificial, un poco de machine learning y cómo obtener los datos y poder mostrarlos al usuario para que los pueda entender y sobre todo dar valor a SEAT principalmente.
Gracias. Y por último, y más importante, es Customer Journey, ¿vale? Donde hacemos aplicaciones web, aplicaciones móviles, todo enfocado alrededor del usuario, ¿vale? Tanto para SEAT como para Cupra y también hacemos algunas cosas para el resto de marcas del grupo. Y sí, utilizamos open source. Yo creo que casi todas las empresas utilizan open source. Al final está en nuestro día a día, están los servidores Linux donde tenemos corriendo nuestras aplicaciones. Sí que es verdad que nosotros pagamos a empresas para que nos den todo el soporte y nos hagan el mantenimiento 24/7, pero sí, o sea, al final sabemos que detrás hay aplicaciones que son open source. Por ejemplo, en el CMS que utilizamos para las websites, podríamos utilizar infinidad de productos que son open source, pero pagamos a una empresa que al final pone una capa de software por encima con una serie de funcionalidades y nos da una serie de mantenimiento y garantías. Evidentemente también utilizamos otra serie de frameworks como Bootstrap o React.js, ¿vale? Pero sí que nos fijamos mucho en cómo utilizamos estas frameworks y las comunidades que hay detrás, ¿no? Las empresas que hay detrás dándole el soporte.
Y bueno, o sea, en proyectos de data nuestro stack principal es Python y ya empezando desde que Python es software libre, con esta licencia más permisiva, al final más del 63% de las librerías que están en Python son licencia BSD o MIT, entonces son las principales librerías que utilizamos. Nuestro stack es completamente ese, entonces utilizamos librerías como NumPy o quizás scikit-learn o bueno, un poco de Boto3, por ejemplo, para las conexiones con AWS. Al final, todas nuestras librerías que utilizamos en los proyectos, sabemos que son permisivas porque, claro, utilizamos librería también de Python para saber cuáles son las licencias que estamos utilizando en los proyectos. Y es muy importante al inicio del proyecto y durante el desarrollo del proyecto asegurarnos de que sean librerías permisivas.
Entonces, no sé si recordaréis, hace ya unos cuantos años, el caso de que tuvo BMW, ¿no? Que utilizó una licencia GPL para el software de sus coches, y al final pues los obligaron a publicar todo el software del i3. ¿Vale? Entonces, a raíz de aquí, dentro del grupo Volkswagen también se ha creado como un departamento donde se controla todo el software que es open source. Y nosotros, antes de publicar cualquier tipo de aplicación a producción, tenemos que enviar todo el listado de las librerías o aplicaciones que tenemos open source, el tipo de licencia que es y cómo lo utilizamos. ¿Sí? Y hasta aquí la introducción de SeatCode. Luis, ¿puedes continuar?
Bueno, gracias SeatCode por acogernos. Vamos a cambiar al inglés porque dijimos que lo haríamos en inglés, por lo que lo haré en inglés. Thank you everyone for coming today. Today we're celebrating the I Love Free Software Day. This is something that the Free Software Foundation puts together every year, and it's an event where we try to explain a little bit what free and open source software is to everyone. I imagine that most of you are somewhat familiar with the concept, but well, nevertheless, I'm sure that you will have some questions. Many people here are very knowledgeable about the topic, so feel free to well, reach out and ask. More specifically, Albert will be talking to us today a little bit about why is it important, especially in this case, for companies to be using free and open source software. So maybe there's something we can collectively learn over there. Something that we also try to do with this campaign of I Love Free Software Day is to thank all of these sometimes thankless work that a lot of the free software developers and maintainers do when they work on their pieces of software. So remember to do so. You can do it right now in here or on the social networks. Thank the people who are creating your the pieces of software that you like and that you rely on your work life or personal life, or just because you like them, it's nice to say nice things to people who are also nice to you. Today, we heard a little bit about what SEAT is doing. Now I'm doing this small presentation. Albert will do his, like I was saying a bit before, and Alexander, who is coming from the motherland, from the FSFE. He will be telling us a little bit about the public money project that he has been working on with his colleagues, very briefly. While I'm here, I would like to thank our sponsors of the Barcelona Free Software Group. They are Katie, FSFE, SUSE, and Pine64. For those of you who don't know, Barcelona Free Software, we're a group of free software developers and enthusiasts in general that, we put together this kind of meetings where we bring some of the interesting projects that are around, either be it because they're in the city or because somebody is traveling through Barcelona and we managed to catch them and make them tell us all about their things. We also talk to we have talked to different organizations, explaining to them a little bit again what free software is and why is it important to use it. So if you have questions, we are familiar with the topic, and I don't know, ask questions. After that, we will be having some food and drinks, like Seat said. So don't leave directly, because otherwise you will miss on all of this, and it would be a waste if it went uneaten, I guess. And without further ado, Albert, please tell us all about free software in companies.
Okay, so let me see if I can get my slides up. Yeah, okay. So I didn't prepare this very much, so apologies if it's not very good. I hope it will be good. I'm told I make good jokes when making presentations, so I hope that accounts for me not being super prepared. Okay, so the title of the presentation is Why Important Companies Are All Using Free Open Source Software. Pablo created the title, so he created the title and told me yeah, you have to do a presentation now. So yeah, maybe it's not super good, but let's see how it goes. So if you see the title says free open source software, right? And this is like free software or open source, right? Like what's the difference? Is it the same thing? It's not the same thing. So I went to the Free Software Foundation page, and I mean, it's very long, right? But if you see the 4 topics they speak about, it's you should be able to use the software, you should be able to study the software, you should be able to share the software, and you should be able to improve the software, right? Which is like, I think it's the same things we have on these posters we have around here. So that's okay. Okay, so that's free software. And then you go to the open source initiative page, and it's so much longer, but they speak about free redistribution, source code availability, that you can do derived works, that there's no discrimination of who can use it and for what you can use it, that the license must be for that software, right, not for something else, and that the license must be technology neutral. And if you see, it's basically the same thing, right? I mean, it's just like defined in different words, but basically it's very similar, right? So like you can use it, which means if you go to the open source page, it means like the no discrimination part, right? Like everybody can use it. Everybody can study it, right? Which goes a bit with the source code availability, right? Because to study it, you have to have the source code. Everybody can share it, which goes with the free software distribution, right? So basically, in my mind, and I know maybe purists disagree, but like free software and open source are the same thing. It's just 2 different terms that people use because they have some implications, right? Like open source is more like business friendly, and free software is like, oh, free, no, I don't want free things, right? But they're the same thing, right? That's in my mind, and it's not only in my mind, right? So like, this is a table I stole from the Wikipedia. You don't see anything on it, but you're gonna have to trust me what's in it, right? So the first column is a list of licenses, right? So I'm gonna try to read them. It's like academic free license, Affero General public license, Apache license 1, Apache license 2, blah, 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 right? So that's the first column. The second column is if the Free Software Foundation thinks it's a free software license, right? The second column is the open source initiative thinks it's an open source license. The third column is if the Debian people think it's good for Debian, right? Like they are like, Debian is very old, right? So like it's probably older than maybe the open source initiative, right? So the Debian people, like at some point decided, okay, what are we going to ship in our distribution, right? So that's the other column, and the other column is Fedora, right? So Fedora is also, they also have their own definition, right? And if you see, most of it's all green, right? I mean, there's a few things that are red in some places, right? So like Debian doesn't like the academic free license for some reason, right? But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, right? Actually, like the OSI column has a few more no's, and I checked some of those, and it's like the OSI is an American thing, right? And for example, like down there at the end, there's something called the what the fuck license, right? Which basically says, do whatever the fuck you want with this software. And it's not OSI approved because they said, this is the same as the public domain, right? So like the public domain in the United States is a thing you can do, which basically says, do what the fuck you want with the software, right? So like, we don't need another license. So it's not that they don't think it's an open source license, it's like, just use the other one, right? It's the same thing, so why would you have another one? So yeah, if somebody tells you like, is it free software, is it not free software, right? It's like it's the Spider-Man people pointing to each other. This is probably not free in any sense, but I hope the Marvel people consider this is fair use of their art. So yeah. Anyhow, back to the topic of the talk, right? Why would you use or / produce free open source software? The L comes from Libre, right? There's some people use this acronym. There's lots of options, and I'm not going to convince you why you should use it because probably you're already convinced. But I'm going to go through a few of them that I think are important. And yeah, I mean, if you disagree, we can talk about it later with the beers. If you have more ideas that whatever should be better or not, let's talk about it, right? So the first, and I think most important part, I mean, if it's probably not the ones that the companies care about, it's because it's the moral option, right? Like, it's for for the wellness of the world, free software is the best, right? Like, you're making that everybody can use it, everybody can share it, right? I mean, I think this is not arguable, right? Like, in a very philosophical way, it is the good thing, right? So, sure, why wouldn't you do it? If the good thing, do good things, right? Like, it's very basic, but doing good things is good. Now, if you're not philosophical, you might be very technically oriented, right? And the free software development model, I'm going to put lots of stars here, right? But like, it's the best development model, right? And lots of companies have adapted it, right? So it's basically, you have this public repository, and people make merge requests, pull requests, whatever about it, or if you're Linux kernel, you send emails because you're old. It is the best way to do things, right? And I've worked both in free software and in non-free software, and I can tell you, like, the non-free software people are dirtier. Like since nobody's gonna see your code, like, it's full of hacks, right? It's like nobody cares. Like, it's like, yeah, it works. Like, just put it over there, put the rock on top, nobody cares. On the free software world, people are going to see your code, right? So people are like, yeah, I'm gonna do this a bit better, right? Now, why I say there's lots of stars here, because like, that model I just described, it's not really used in all free software, right? There's lots of free software. It's just like someone in their room coding, and there's no Git or whatever, and they do a tarball every so often, and that's it, right? It's not the most common nowadays, but it happens. Like, I think it was Beam used to be like that until recently, right? I checked yesterday, and there's a public repository of Beam nowadays, but I think I might be wrong, but I think it was like one guy getting code patches in his bedroom and just sharing them later, right? Now, one of the other reasons, and probably the ones that the companies like, is that in general, it's the cheapest option, right? It is there, it's free. Obviously, you need, like, as they said, like, you're gonna end up, if you're a serious big company, you're gonna end up hiring someone to do the support and whatnot, because you're scared of having to talk to geeks, right? So you want to talk to a business. But even if you hire someone to do the maintenance part, it's still the cheapest option, so sure, let's do that, right? On the other hand, it's usually also the best option, right? Like, I don't know, if you're gonna do video, either FFmpeg or GStreamer, like, that's what everybody uses, right? All your TVs at home have that inside, right? Like, it is the best thing that there is for doing video. Like, nobody has done anything on the private world that's better than that, right? Like, it's just updated so often. It has support for all the codecs that exist and the ones that don't exist. So it's just the best option sometimes, right? And sometimes not, but sometimes it is. And when it's not, you can improve it, right? Because like with non-free software, you get what you get, right? And it's like, I don't like this. It's like, well, tough luck if you don't like it, right? That's what we sell. Unless you are like the biggest company in the world that can go and say, there, $3 trillion, fix it for me. They might not fix the things that you want, right? So free software, you can improve it, right? You might want to send it upstream, and the upstream people will say, no, we don't like it. Okay, that happens, but you can still have it on your side, right? And on top of that, you can adapt it to your language or your operating system, right? Like, I don't know, you're like weird and you're using old operating systems like, I don't know, Solaris or HP UX or whatever, right? You can adapt that software to those operating systems, or you want to translate it to Catalan. Well, I don't know, just go to WhatsApp and say you want it in Catalan. I don't know if it's Catalan or not, I think it's not. They will ignore you, and that's it, right? But then you can go to Signal and say, hey, Signal people, we want this in Catalan, and it works, right? So, yeah, if you're like a company, or maybe not a company, but like maybe more of a public thing, right, a government, things being in your language is very important. So, yeah, this is a very good thing. Another thing is like there's free software for everything, right? Since there is no, usually, or necessarily, monetary gain. Like, people don't usually want to get rich with free software, right? So they will do anything, right? There's lots of use cases that don't make sense if you want to make money out of it, right? I don't know, you are making a library to calculate when it's going to be Friday the 13th, right? Like when it's Friday the 13th every month, or whatever. That doesn't make sense, but I'm sure if you go to the PyPy or whatever, there's something that does that, because people will get bored and will make things. And so, yeah, that's good, right? The thing that there's free software for everything means that at some point, you will say, okay, this thing that that person made then seems silly, but maybe it's not silly anymore. I can use it on my software, and it's good. Something important for companies, some companies, is you don't want to get your things stolen, right? People neither, right? But I think people sometimes are more, meh, I don't have anything worth stealing. But yeah, companies usually have things worth stealing, right? So yeah, free software usually respects your privacy, right? I mean, by the fact that you can look at the code and see if it's stealing things from you, you will realize quickly if it's respecting your privacy or not. So yeah, respect your privacy. I think it's a very important thing if you're a company. Most important ever, there's the vendor lock-in, right? Like this is the typical thing that non-free software companies like to do, which is like they will sell you something and then you have to buy them forever because you can't move your data away, right? That you bought this database and there's no documentation of how the database works or how to get information out of it or whatever, so you have to buy from them forever. Well, that's not something that happens with free software, right? Generally, right? I mean, there's better and worse implementation of things. You can end up being locked in if you don't realize. But in general, the code is there, so you're able to understand to some degree how it works, and you can go away from one vendor to another. Now, sadly, some companies do free software because it's good for their image, right? They don't care about free software at all. It's just like, I'm being like the greenwashing, right? Like I'm being green, I use recycled plastic. Well, it's still plastic, right? But they do that sometimes with free software, right? Not to name names, but Google, for example, does this often, right? They do lots of free software, which is good, and you can use it, but sometimes it's not really that easy to use it or to contribute to it if you're not a Google employee, right? It's like, yeah, the code is there. I mean, it does fulfill all the basics of the licenses, right? So you can use it, you can share it, you can blah, blah, blah. But if it wasn't, I don't know. Anyhow, image washing, it happens, right? And more importantly, and this is my last slide, because of you, right? It is a Thursday evening in Barcelona. There's a Barcelona-Manchester United game happening, and you're still here. So there's a community around the world that makes, like, people are passionate about this thing, right? So, like, they will do things for you just because they're nice, if you're nice to them, right? So, yeah, I think it's a good thing that we're doing free software. These are my reasons. I said before, if you disagree, let's talk a bit later. And that's it. Thank you. And I think Alex wanted to. We can do some questions, maybe? Sure. If you have questions, I can answer. Does anybody have a question?
My question is, what does the Free Software Foundation guy think about the distinction between free software and open source software?
It's like we want short questions, right? We don't want to be here forever.
Sure, we came up with a kind of a new wording for this, and we tend to say free software, also known as open source. So this is our agreement to both worlds, I'd say.
No more questions?
I think it's a good transition to your...
So
yep.
then exactly. So then I just continue. So also thanks for the invitation. And yeah, so I'm working for the Free Software Foundation Europe, and we are a charity to empower users to control technology. And Yeah, we do believe that this is done with free software, and in this regard, I couldn't agree more on what you've said on the companies, but we also run a campaign on public bodies, administrations, so where our taxpayers' money goes. And this campaign is called Public Money, Public Code, and what's true for companies is also true for governments, and they should release the code in terms for checking for privacy issues, for example. Just remember the Corona tracing apps, for example. But also, I mean, they handle a lot of our data when it comes to security, stuff like this, and so on and so on. And in this regard, we started this campaign, I think it's now 4 years ago. And we pretty much demand that whenever there's taxpayers' money involved, the code should be also available to the public. And this is running quite well, this campaign, so I'm not sure. Anyhow, just leave it like this. Yeah. Ah, cool. Yeah. So we also have cool campaigning material, like a video that explains quickly what we want in this campaign. It's also translated in many languages, like Spanish as well. And we also have pretty much the same reasons which we just heard about the company thingies. So it's about, first of all, tax saving. So public bodies have pretty much the same demand everywhere in the world. So I don't know if you have to pay tax for your dog. It's pretty much the same in every city. So the system behind, so why not using the same software then? You need also like office solutions, so why not picking a free software one then, but going to, I don't know, paying for licenses that end up somewhere in Ireland and go over the big lake. Also, you can collaborate, and we see that more and more administrations are happy to collaborate with other administrations so that they develop projects together. We see this in Spain, but also in other countries in Europe. And by thus you can share expertise and costs, but also it means you can collaborate not only on the code, but you can also bring in other stakeholders. Again, the example of the Corona tracing apps, so we brought in scientists from many let's say topics that helped to create kind of a good solution in the end. So don't only think about the code, but we can also bring in loads of other stakeholders to create good projects. And in the end, it also serves the public. I mean, it's not only about money, but it helps us, the transparent code helps us to convince people that the solution is good, or that we need to further develop it, that it will be a good one in the end. And this also helps us to foster innovation, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again, so we can build up on what's already out there. And in this regard, we also think it's not only good for companies to invest in free software, but also for public bodies. If you share this idea, you can sign our open letter. There are already more than 30,000 individuals who signed it, but also as organizations like you guys signed, but also the city of Barcelona signed this campaign, so there are also administrations signing this campaign, the Swedish Job Development Center, so if you are jobless, you go there. They also are part of that, a minor German administration and so on, so there are also administrations understanding why it's a good thing. So you can sign it, but you can also use the material we have on this webpage to go to convince your administrations, but you can pretty much also, just delete administrations and say company, and you have pretty much the same arguments to convince your company if you want. So, and here you can see some of the organizations who signed, and also we have a dedicated brochure where you can also find way more arguments, but also stories, success stories around projects from public administrations. And with this, I think we're ready for the pizzas.
Yeah, so thanks, Alex. Pizza, everyone, now. Yeah, I don't think it was Alex, no. Why are you still looking at me? Go. There?
Let's go to the pizza.
Take stickers. Yeah, but questions we can do around the pizza.